How could a country of 9 million Israelis control a powerful country of 330 million Americans? The idea that Israel controls the U.S. is an oversimplification that risks dipping into conspiracy territory. But the real story is more nuanced and speaks to geopolitics, lobbying power, and shared interests. Watch.
How does a country of 9 million control a superpower of 330 million? It's not magic. It's lobbying, media, and billions of dollars. Israel uses AIPAC, one of the most powerful lobbying groups in Washington, to pressure Congress. Presidential candidates compete to prove who's more pro-Israel. U.S. foreign aid. Israel gets over $3.8 billion a year, no questions asked. Criticize Israel publicly? You risk your career. Just ask politicians like Ilhan Omar or journalists who got blacklisted. Even legislation exists in multiple states, punishing businesses that boycott Israel. This isn't about religion. It's about power, influence, and silence. Meanwhile, Palestinians face bombs and occupation, funded in part by U.S. taxpayers.
Which group in America is so powerful it literally controls American politics to stay loyal to Israel even if the government of Israel committed so heinous a crime like genocide, as it is happening in Gaza? It's called AIPAC. If you think America has a very powerful influence over Israel, you got it backwards. Israel, primarily through AIPAC, controls America to, for example, send Israel every year at least $3.8 billion. Most Americans don't know that.
It's our money! It's our money! If Israel wants to carry out war crimes, they shouldn't do it with our money. You can't, on one hand, demand that American taxpayers who are desperate for a better life here in America, they need to hand over billions of dollars to the Israeli government and the IDF, and we need to shut the F up about any of our critique. AIPAC is evil. AIPAC is evil, evil. My fellow Americans, are you okay with that? Are you okay with a lobbying group representing the best interests of a foreign government telling you you need to bust your ass every day, work a job that you likely hate, and have a portion of your earnings taken from you by our federal government and funneled to the Israeli government so they can commit atrocities in the Gaza Strip? Are you okay with that? Because I'm not okay with that. And nothing gets under my skin more, okay, than hearing these pieces of crap. They feel entitled to our money. Entitled. That gets under my skin more than you guys understand, okay?
AIPAC holds enormous power over our politicians, and they've spent the last several decades making sure that the only people who can hold office in America are people who are completely loyal to Israel, and they will oust anybody who is not completely loyal. I want to talk about how AIPAC was able to gain all this power and how it almost didn't happen this way. Before AIPAC, there was what was called the American Zionist Council, which was another pro-Israeli lobbying group that represented the interests of 9 different Zionist groups in the United States. AIPAC was founded in 1953 under a different name, the American Zionist Committee for Public Affairs. And they were a lobbying division of this lobbying group. It was founded as part of a damage control plan by Israel to influence public opinion after the Kibbutz massacre, where Israeli soldiers massacred an entire Palestinian village. 1962, though, JFK forced the American Zionist Council to register as a foreign agent, making it illegal for them to send any more money to U.S. politicians. JFK suspected that Israel was funneling tens of millions of dollars into the American Zionist Council and into AIPAC. But the very next year, JFK was assassinated, his administration collapsed, and AIPAC decided to separate themselves from the American Zionist Council, which also let them not register as a foreign agent anymore, so they could give money to politicians again. They used a loophole to get out of registering as a foreign agent, and nobody in our government has tried to make them re-register again. In the decades since then, AIPAC has established themselves as one of the most powerful players in American politics, pouring tens of millions into our elections, making sure everybody stays loyal to Israel. But if you ask me, there's nothing that changed between 1962 and 1963. AIPAC is still acting as a foreign agent. And the fact is, we still have no idea who's giving them all this money.
That's how AIPAC avoid being required to register as a foreign agent. But the truth is, AIPAC's close coordination with Israeli officials and policies effectively makes it a foreign agent in all but name. Its massive influence on Congress, especially its aggressive targeting of lawmakers critical of Israel, should trigger FARA review. But no, that's how powerful this Jewish lobby is.
AIPAC is lobbying for a foreign government. And I don't, it's not.
No.
It's lobbying for the United States.
It is lobbying for a strong U.S.-Israeli relationship.
So it has nothing to do with the foreign government, but it's lobbying on behalf of the interests of another country. So my question is not, is it outrageous that foreign governments lobby the United States? They all do, okay, including Israel. My only question is, why don't we admit that is what's happening? You're denying it, but it's true. Why aren't they registered as a foreign lobby?
Because they're not.
They're not a foreign lobby.
No, they're not.
I'm only trying to get to the question of what AIPAC is, and I don't think you're being straightforward about it. AIPAC is lobbying on behalf of the interests of a foreign country, and they're not registered. And you're saying, no, that's not true. You're saying that they don't coordinate with the Israeli government. But the law is, and a lot of people have been prosecuted under this law, that if you are lobbying on behalf of foreign government, you must register. That's it. It's really simple. And I don't know why, if I'm working from Malaysia or Qatar or Belgium, and I'm working on behalf of its government's interests through a group of Americans who are representing the friendship between those two nations, I have to register under the Foreign Agent Registration Act, and if I don't, I can go to jail. And people have gone to jail, including people I know. So I don't understand why we don't just be honest and say they're lobbying on behalf of a foreign government, they're coordinating with the government. You know that that's true.
That is not only not true, that is false.
They're not coordinating with the Israeli government? The question is are AIPAC's goals shaped by the goals of the Israeli government to any extent?
Okay, that's
a really
different
simple
from
question.
lobbying on behalf of.
It's a simple question. Are AIPAC's goals shaped by the goals of the Israeli government? And I'm just going to ask you a question straightforwardly. And if you say no, I think we both know that's not true.
Hey, are they shaped by?
Are they coordinating with the Israeli government?
Are they talking with them? Yes.
The Israeli
Israel
government?
directing them? Does Israel direct AIPAC? No, they are not lobbying on behalf of them. Do they care about them? Yes, but...
Do you think that it's just interesting because what you're now describing in a very defensive way, I will say, is foreign influence over our politics?
No.
Like America today, the Israeli government's shift toward authoritarianism and religious extremism is quite dangerous, as we see Netanyahu's government has been doing lately. Both are drifting towards far-right extremism. AIPAC claims to speak for the American Jewish community, but it doesn't. It speaks for pro-Israel interests in U.S. politics, often aligned with conservative evangelicals and defense industry donors as much as with Jews. If only Americans listened to Jimmy Carter when he warned us about Israel and even about AIPAC.
Why don't Americans know what you have seen?
Americans don't want to know, and many Israelis don't want to know what is going on inside Palestine. It's a terrible human rights persecution that far transcends what any outsider would imagine. And there are powerful political forces in America that prevents any objective analysis of the problem in the Holy Land. I think it's accurate to say that not a single member of Congress with whom I'm familiar would possibly speak out and call for Israel to withdraw to their legal boundaries or to publicize the plight of the Palestinians, or even to call publicly and repeatedly for good faith peace talks. There hadn't been a day of peace talks now in more than 7 years. So this is a taboo subject, and I would say that if any member of Congress did speak out, as I've just described, they would probably not be back into Congress the next term. The persecution of the Palestinians now under the occupying territories under the occupation forces is one of the worst examples of human rights deprivation that I know. What is being done to the Palestinians now is horrendous in their own territory by the occupying powers, which is Israel. They've taken away all the basic human rights of the Palestinians, as was done in South Africa against the blacks. And I make it very plain in this book that the apartheid is not based on racism, as it was in South Africa, but it's based on the desire of a minority of Israelis to acquire land that belongs to the Palestinians and to retain that land, and then to exclude the Palestinians from their own property and subjugate them so that they can't arouse and demonstrate their disapproval of being robbed of their own property. That's what's happening in the West Bank. And the people in this country, in America, never know about this. They never discuss this. There's no debate about it.